Namaste, Aloha, Sitaram, Assalamu Alaikum, Shalom to each and every one of you. Good day, good afternoon to all our audience, and I want to say thank you so much for joining us. This is Dianne Ojar, the Divine Soul Journey. Why Divine Soul Journey? Well, divine and soul and a journey, we're all on that together. We all have a soul, we all have a spirit, we all have something with us. And we know divine, we all look up to something, a higher cause. And we're on this journey. We want to be on this journey together with you. As a disclaimer, I just want to say this is not about religion. It's about your faith and belief. And I respect that in our audience and everyone. We respect each other, especially our guests' beliefs as well. I just want to say to you that the content in this show is there for teaching and learning. We're not here to suggest anything to you. But I want to say, if you find the content here, what we're going to be talking about, intrigues you, and you want to reach out to us, definitely do at dsjshow2020@gmail.com. Now, it is my pleasure today for me to introduce my guest out of Dublin, the UK, and his name is Jim Doyle. I want to say welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you so much, Dianne.
Lovely. So, Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, quite simply, I'll start with where I am at the moment. And that is for the past approximately 20 years. I've been an energy healer and intuitive, working with people with resolving problems. But before that, I was an electronics engineer with quite a successful career. And but before that, my intuitive side came to the fore, shall we say, back in my early 20s. I just moved from Ireland I'm in Cambridge in the UK, and I was working here, and I was on holiday on an island, and I was about a few hundred miles from my parents' home in Ireland, in line of sight, as it were. And I woke up at night, and I had a sense of flames, which was a bit strange, and a sense of my father shouting in distress. Now, that was quite rare, but I was very disturbed by it. And so I phoned back to the village store in Ireland, and my parents' home had been burned to the ground that night. Fortunately, all my family were well. They were unharmed. But that was a huge wake-up call for me to start out, shall we say, a parallel activity of investigating psychic research and healing and psychic things. Went on for many, many years and led to some fascinating events and insights along the way. Now, but it wasn't really until the millennium, so 23 years ago, that I'd got to a stage, I suppose some could call it a midlife transition. Let's be honest, how about a midlife crisis? I got to a stage where life was uncomfortable. And if you'd asked me then, I probably would not have been able to tell you what was wrong, except things weren't right. I had a very minor medical issue. Didn't like the suggestion of what they wanted to do to it, and ended up going to a mind-body spirit show, the first one I'd been to, and I connected with a Korean group who somehow positively pressed my buttons, if you see what I mean, and I ended up working with them now to solve my problems, shall we say. Is this all making sense, Dianne?
Yes, I totally makes sense. It reminds me of and not to have a comparison, that even my father, I had mentioned to you when we first met, that my father's business was burned down, and I actually saw it. It burned down for like a whole week, So, and my father had a stroke then. So I
Yeah.
understand what it is to lose everything that you so work so hard for. Definitely. And,
Mm.
even it's funny, as you asked me that question, even when I was pregnant, I knew when I got pregnant. Like literally, I knew that night I got pregnant or the next day or so because I would dream I had a baby girl, a friend, well, he's like a brother to us, holding her wrapped in saran wrap in a cemetery. It's the strangest things. And so I reached a point, reached a point that nothing surprises me anymore. So I can
Well,
resonate when you have that gut feeling and you just have to go with it because we're all the light in our family. There's always one who is the exception to the rule, right? So I can understand what you're saying, definitely so.
it sounds like there's two of us speaking here, who we're the exceptions in our families. Um, but going back to the Korean group, what their approach was that we essentially solve our problems by effectively working with our ancestors and effectively blessing them and appeasing them, if you like, and went through a whole series of very profound, very, well, I suppose, upsetting, deeply disturbing, yet deeply meaningful uh, events for me over about a year. But at the end, I had some astonishing experiences there. But at the end of it, it was like a big emptiness in my heart. There was something missing. And I went to an introductory weekend on energy healing. And by the Saturday night, I knew I had to do a 3-year course, which was quite a challenge because at the time I was running my own business, a small business. I had a fairly young family, and my wife, shall we say, was giving me funny looks. um,
I've
and we're
been
still
there.
together, by the
I've been there. I did the same thing. Just wanted to find who I was, who I am, and where I was going a decade
way.
ago. And yes, I did mine for 3 months. So, Jim, I think we're looking in the mirror, okay, as we reflection each
Well,
other.
exactly. So anyway, so the next thing is that having done some basic training. So this was 5 weeks a year for 3 years. This was in the UK. The organisation no longer exists as such, but they were very intensive weeks. And my wife would has it reminded me on occasion that for the week leading up to my week away, I was incommunicado, and for the week coming back, it was like, "Where's Jim gone?" And but I'd say early in 2003, the 2003 year, a homework client practice client had sort of double vision and balance issues for many years. 40 minutes later, they didn't have it. I can assure you, I know imposter syndrome very well from the inside because it was, who the hell am I? Because what's going on here? And even though I knew all the words and teachings and so on that I had so far, that experience was, well, earth shaking, I suppose. It's hard to find the words, but it was also exciting. And we then carried on. We did an incredible amount of work during those 3 years. And one other skill that I had already was dowsing, or kinesiology, if you like. So, like using a pendulum or
Yes,
rods, I just use my fingers and thumbs now. I've been doing this a long
yes,
time for finding the answers.
yes,
So, jumping forward to the present time, where I've evolved to, or apparently evolved to, is that my combination of intuition, dowsing, and all my training, obviously, enables me to very quickly identify the root cause of what is going on. So, if you like, I incorporate the ancestral side, and I keep discovering new areas that I've never heard of before, affecting people in different ways. And for interest, most of my clients A lot are in the UK, but many of my clients are all over the world. I have a map here behind me with dots from uh, Australia to Indonesia, South America, Canada, States, all over Europe, in some fairly exotic places, and Asia as well. So I've worked with people with all kinds of issues, and very often they don't really know what the problem is other than they've got a problem. Does this sound familiar?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hear
Yeah,
everything. I know
yeah,
exactly what you're saying and the practices and the techniques with the pendulum
yeah.
as well. So,
Well,
and
I
the
don't.
trainings, everything.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not about going back to the training. It's about getting to know oneself
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
being presented with our own version of, okay, it's a big bad word, other people's demons, other people's fears and doubts and
Mm,
triggers. Yeah,
mm,
but having had so many triggers of my own activated, it means that I'm in a space, or usually in a space of cool, calm, and collective, whatever is going on, and whatever the client I'm working with may be experiencing. And in many cases, we're having a laugh about really serious stuff. And when I get a client to fill in a questionnaire before the first connection, as it were, very often there might be 10, 20 events in their life, some of them quite serious. And what I have been known to say, I think you like this, what I have been known to say to a client in sort of the first session on Zoom is to say, well, I've been through your questionnaire, thank you very much, but you've had quite an adventurous life. And but the good news is that according to my initial glance down there, the first 6 or maybe 10 events on there are not actually relevant to the problems that you're talking about at the present time. And you can see this great big weight lifting off their shoulders because they've come along with this heavy load of things they think are a problem and things from the past that should be a problem, but in reality they aren't.
But
And
that
that's
would make
before we do
sense.
anything.
But that would make
Yeah,
sense because when you do the list, you go from the conscious mind. It's like you keep asking them why, and make the list. And as they go, the more they write, is the deeper they go into their lives, and it starts coming to the surface. Because of consciously, it would be for probably the first 5 to 10 things, or maybe less, more. Who knows? But as you go
yeah,
deeper and deeper, and it's in thought, it kicks in, and the unconscious
yeah.
mind starts to say, okay, you want this, I'm going to help you. They know you want to do it.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating how the mind works. It's one, and once you respect it, people just really don't understand. We have to respect what we have because our brain is fascinating. Because I teach a lot
You
about the
know,
brain. It's absolutely fascinating if you understand it on a actual quantum physical level, as a physical brain itself, and on the more spiritual side, it's fascinating, but they do go hand in hand.
they do, but you know what? I I look on it as nobody knows how we work. We don't know whether our mind is such as in our brain or whatever. I tend to look at, I'm working with a person, and I get a vibe off them, if you like,
But it's
and
energy.
just
It's energy. It's energy. We work with
exactly,
energy,
it's
right? So
energy, and
yes.
it's not about how anything works. It's quite simply where I look on, because I put on my engineering hat, if you like. I've always been solving problems, yeah, from all my life. I used to solve it with technology, microprocessors, etc. And now I work with people and businesses. And it's what I look on it as always finding where the root cause is, but more to the point, when the root cause is. And rather than go through the person's story, not all the time, but much of the time, rather than go through the story as they see it and present it, I'll often say, can you just give me a minute while I have a look and just see when the problem comes from? And I do a quick muscle testing on myself and say, okay, I'll come back into them and say, oh, so what happened 6 or 7 years ago, or 25 or 30, 25, 26 years ago? Yeah. And they look blank for a moment, and sometimes they go, oh my God, that's when, divorce, granny died, uh, made redundant, whatever it was. Bad things happened. And I can then work with them where they don't have to go back and relive whatever bad experience, if there was one then, but work with them as though they're looking through a telescope the wrong way. So this all looks very far away and very, very small, but we're only just working with what life felt like at that point, and where in their body they may feel a response to that when they think about that time of their life. So they may feel a tightness in their stomach or the heart or the throat or the head or the little finger. And then we can work with that. And what I do is I test. So before we start working on it, having satisfactorily identified it between us, I measure on muscle testing, I measure the level between 1 and 10 of how much it appears to be affecting them. And we discuss it, and they say, yeah, it's high, it's medium, it's low, but it's a problem. And then we do some work together, some energy work, some visualization perhaps, and then we both check again whether it's gone, whether there's further work to do, or whether we need to leave it and move on to something else. Does that all make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And here is the thing is what and again for everyone who's joining us, we're here with Jim Doyle out in Dublin, the UK. A fascinating story and conversation we're having here because one of the things about modalities, which is techniques and there's slightly different versions, but it's the same thing because people introduce a certain types of energy healing modalities, but it all comes from a base. It all comes from one source in a sense.
Mm.
However, it's taught differently and adapted differently, and it's used differently. Depends on who your client is when they have a presenting problem. So it's fascinating to this. So definitely it does make sense. There's no
Mm.
question about that.
Yeah. And but I also work in exactly the same way with businesses and with properties as well, because to me, a business just started out as a thought, and and it has energy, it has flows, it has blocks, it has distortions, just like everybody else. And for example, I was speaking to somebody recently, and they had real problems in their business. It doesn't matter what type of business, but they had real problems in their business. Complicated story behind it. Now, I knew nothing about this business. In fact, it's in another country, and I've not had an email or anything about it. So in a short conversation, I ended up saying to this person, saying, well, something doesn't add up here in what you're saying. Let me just check. And I went back, I don't know, about 10 years or something, and said, what happened then? And they went, oh my God, all these things happened, people resigning, etc., etc., etc. And what I was picking up was that the old trauma energy of people resigning or being fired or whatever it was at founder level was still affecting the company. Not only was it still affecting the company, but it was literally holding it back. It was like nailed to the floor, as the expression goes, and he couldn't move forward. And this person I'm working with they were tearing their hair out because they were doing everything right in the conventional logical sense, but nothing was working. And I've had a message since then. Now, I haven't done masses of work on it, but made them aware of what was going on. And I've had a message since then, which indicates that there have been some significant shifts already. Um,
Yeah,
so,
definitely. So, here's one of the things that for everyone who's listening, Thank you so much again. Here with Jim Doyle. And one of the things we're not taught, because I mean, I grew up very traditional. I didn't grow up with knowing much. I didn't know what energy was until I did my NLP training. And then again, I didn't really know what it was, but I know my head was pounding and everything else. Understanding, I didn't understand I was going through a transition, a transformation, I should say, too, as well. And my girlfriend actually is the one who was like, okay, this is what's going on. I was like, okay, what's going on with my head? It wasn't a traditional headache. It wasn't that. It was not whatsoever. You can tell the difference. However, in saying that, with businesses, people truly do not understand that a business is a reflection of who you are. Now, also, if you have what we call karma, or people might call it, you know, when somebody says something negative, or they call it voodoo, they call it curse, whatever you want to call it. It's totally up to you. That's your belief, and that's fine. Everybody has their own beliefs, as I said. However, when they say words are powerful, so somebody is really ticked off, and they got fired or laid off, and you don't know what energy they're leaving behind, and you continue. So you really got to clear that energy. And this is why, especially if you're in the same spot, the same location, you haven't changed, you haven't moved, the pattern is the same, the strategy is the same that you continue to use, you're going to run into these problems. So if somebody said, say a bad word when leaving in anger, it's going to stay there.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm saying? Does that sound correct to you? I'm not here to be correct.
Absolutely. That's right. Because it's the what's it called? The predecessor. So if you look at a property, they talk about predecessor energy, the previous tenants, and what house was built on. It's the same kind of thing. Because I just in passing, I work with properties as well. So when somebody can't sell their property, even though it's a good property, good price, good location, etc. I worked with somebody who had a rental property on the market for a year, nothing but silly offers. And I had a long chat with him. I had, as I do, a long chat with the house without going there. 6 days later, they got 2 identical offers, which they were very happy with, because I'd moved their energy and cleared some energy from the house. Yeah.
So you work you work with the Akashic records as well?
I just work with the energy and what I sense.
Energy. Okay.
So maybe I work with the Akashic records, but not consciously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, once you can sense the energy, you're very, very sensitive and intuitive in a sense that some people are, some people are not. Some people third eye is open, and for those who are listening, and I don't want you to believe that what we're talking about doesn't make sense to you. On an unconscious level, without even knowing it, it does make sense. And we're just here to open the minds. We're not here to convince you about anything. But if something is not right and it doesn't feel right, that means it's not right. So this is what we're saying. You best be listening to this for a reason. So that's what we're sharing with you. And there's way. So tell us, Jim, what can someone do from your perspective, and then we'll do a forgiveness practice, a general one, shortly. So from your perspective, what are some of the things you recommend people to do? Simple little things they can do. Let's say
well, first of all, can I say that there can be a lot of confusion about healing and energy work and energy around us, and it gets called woo-woo and all kinds of strange things, and basically there's a lot of confusion. But the way I see it is that it is a perfectly normal, natural skill that we all have, but it is conditioned out of most of us for generations that we don't go there for whatever reasons. And we don't go there, or we don't talk about that kind of thing, and I don't want to talk about religion or whatever, because that's not an issue.
No, this is not about
Um,
religion whatsoever. This has
well,
been
that
around for
exactly.
eons.
This is about natural. This is
Yeah.
about naturally life. This is about life and consciousness.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
Okay. So let's just address that before we talk about some of the things they can do. This has been going
yeah,
back for since Thy Kingdom Come, and I'm going to bring
yeah.
this in not as a religion, but most people sort of refer and say, okay, as a point of reference, when they talk about Jesus doing miracles, he was a healer, right?
Mm,
So if you think of it logically, I'm not using Jesus as in terms of the religion. I'm talking about in terms of who he was as an example to people. He was a healer, and it
yeah,
happens. Unfortunately, because society has actually um, didn't understand this, a lot of people were hurt or beheaded and so forth because they thought they were witches and doing bad. By the way, a witch is a wise
mhm.
woman, and a wizard is also a smart man. However, it's the society and all these man-made religions that really and truly label it as something else. But this goes back to ancient, traditional, ancient wisdom from the wise back. It's always been there, and it will always be there.
Yeah.
Except now, it's acceptable more and more
Well,
as we speak about
it's
it.
it's just yeah, it's just about acceptable. Yes, there's a lot of noise on social media, and there are a lot of people with good intentions, and there are some with, well, in my humble opinion, distorted intentions.
Of course, it's a yin and yang.
Yeah,
There's always the opposite polarities, right? There's a yin
exactly.
and a yang. You have to have, you have voodoo and you have hoodoo. You everyone I want everyone to know that
Yeah,
each and every one of
yeah,
us has a gift.
yeah.
We have
Well, that's
control or
right.
power, but what we do with it, that is where you draw the line, and it makes a big difference. You could do it to serve, or you could do it to be, for greed and so forth,
Mm,
and that's where the trouble starts. So definitely,
exactly. Because there are so many types of people in terms of mindsets and intentions and good, bad, selfish, whatever, um, and
hmm
everybody has their own way. And the difficulty with what we're talking about, energy, life, consciousness, is that it is an independence. It's an independent thing. It is your thing, whoever you are, and it is yours to express in whatever way you like within the limitations of your social environment and also your own internal uh, beliefs, limiting and otherwise. So if you, oh yeah, one thing I would say, you were asking about what advice I could perhaps give.
what
One thing I would say,
recommendations? What recommendations can you give people if
right,
they want to just go right now
well,
and do something
it's
simple?
a big, this is a big one, because how often do we hear about um, have yeah? So we're saying mantras. We want to manifest lots of money, and people saying, I am I am rich, I am powerful, all this kind of thing. But ultimately, if you are running a subconsciously beliefs that you're not entitled to money, you're a poor, starving person, you never can have enough, you can say all the mantras you like, yeah, but you're running two energies at the same time, and they're in direct competition with each other. One saying, no, you can't, and the other one saying, yes, you can. And this is where people get confused and say that, um, the manifestation things don't work. Um, but primarily, I believe, and I've seen my own issues, and I've seen many other people's as well, is that we're very often running conflict internally, and conflict is, as far as I see it, the source of pain, the source of limiting beliefs, the source of stress. You take stress, for example, yeah, because you may have somebody being pushed too hard at work, yeah, being pushed by the boss to work longer hours or work harder, but their inner voice is saying, or the heart is saying, I need more time for me. So you have a conflict there. That's a very simple example. It's always conflict, is the way I see it. So you can have conflict between your cultural beliefs, your ancestral beliefs, and the world you live in now. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with the world. There's nothing wrong with you, other than you're carrying a belief, consciously or unconsciously or both, which says this is how you should behave, but the people around you are pushing you to say this is how you should behave, which is quite different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. And the other thing about it is, we have chemicals in our body. Again, this all goes hand in hand, and there's certain chemicals that, we call it the happy chemicals, and then there's the not so happy chemicals in our body that also helps us with our states of minds. But one of the other things I want to mention to anyone out there, we have a line. We call it a timeline. It goes from the past to the future, and in the middle is the now. If you have blockages, because I know I had them, I didn't realize how much I had them. If you have blockages in the past and areas of darkness that you can't see, or there was things that you don't understand or didn't recognize in this life, it could have been past lives that's carried on. You got to smooth that out. You got to work with that. You got to release it, because if you take that on to the future, of course, the future is the next second, but that becomes the past now. The next second, but that becomes the past now, obviously, right? This is real time we're talking about. If you carry that pattern to the future, you're not going to manifest that money, because you have to make sure you clear up what is behind you so you can have a smooth future. Money is just a concept. It's not about money, it's about prosperity and abundance. So we
Yeah.
want to make sure whatever happened in the past, by clearing the energies like Jim is speaking about, needs to be dealt with first. You can pray for. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you probably would not, be thriving, but not to your full potential until you really address what the issue is. Because we are full of abundance, massive abundance. But we gotta take care of the,
Absolutely.
housekeeping,
Yeah.
and we gotta clean up some of the things. Clean up your closet. That's another way of doing it. Especially for in relationship, if you have a really nasty divorce or separation, then get rid of the stuff. Stop holding on to it, whether it be
Mm.
physical, emotional, mental, or any
Mm.
attachment that you have to it. This is how you clean up things. Simple little
Yes,
things
but
like that.
sometimes,
Move if you have to.
sometimes, yeah, absolutely. You have to get rid of those, which is often easier said than done,
That's correct.
because
Hmm.
and not only that, as you evolve, as you clear that, then there's more other things to come. But in the meantime, you've moved forward, so it should be easier to deal with the next lot of stuff that shows up. However, I would say what's really important here is that you can have, say, ancestral patterns. Yeah, I've had to deal with some things of my own going back over 10 generations
Hmm.
now, and other people as well, much further back. And it's not about knowing the family tree, because what's important is the unstated things about abuse, sadness, bullying, slavery, you name it. Yeah, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. All that stuff, it's not documented. Yeah, so even if you know all the records, it doesn't matter. But this kind of energy can show up, and it can also hold you back, particularly in some cases with abundance, because for most of us, the vast majority of us, if we come back to understanding wealth, money, and abundance, let's say our grandparents probably didn't have a very good understanding, or certainly our great-grandparents, for most people. And there never has been a clear educational or knowledge system that you can access to understand abundance. And yet there's an awful lot of negative beliefs around it, because it gets confused with power and people taking things away, and value and worth. And it gets into an awfully complicated system. And the best you can do is, if you're struggling with that kind of issue, is just take a deep breath. If you have the option, go for a walk in the park or in the woods and go and sit under a tree. Definitely recommend that. Hugging the tree is optional. And
but it's a
so
good thing.
what you do,
it's a good energy, though.
It's a very good thing, but you know, it might go against your principles, or there might be too many people watching.
Yeah. Well, these people don't exist, Jim. In any case, these people don't exist, because as far as we know, all this is a hologram. So if you're really into who you are, it really doesn't matter who's around.
Please, let's be nice to the listeners. Don't start telling the holograms that.
No. I am saying it's true. It's because it's all about you. It's all about you. I'm not saying. I'm saying to you, technically speaking, if you're going to be conscious of who's around you, you will never move forward. So just ignore everybody around you, right? And about the holograms, that's true. So that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. But I'm saying to you, really and truly, this is really all about you. So whatever your beliefs are, and you want to go hug the tree, go hug the tree.
But what I would say is a magical way of working with your own stuff, whatever it is. So you've recognized you've got a repeating problem. You know, your relationships are always breaking up. You're always broke at the end of the month, or it doesn't matter what it is. Or you have a particular health issue with your little toe on your left foot or something. Ignore that last one, because it's a health issue. If you have some kind of inner conflict, you have imposter syndrome, you can't speak in public, that kind of thing. Spend some time with yourself. Don't bother getting meditation music or whatever. If you can get a bit of silence, it's even better. And if you can sit under a tree or something like that, good as well. And literally just breathe slowly. Breathe down into your stomach, not shallow breathing. So when you put one hand on your stomach, this is just if you're not used to it, to see that you're breathing properly, put one hand on your stomach. And when you breathe in, you want to feel as though your stomach is, with your hand, you want to feel as though your stomach is filling up. What you're doing is you're breathing into the bottom of your lungs slowly and filling them up to the top. And then when you breathe out, you reverse the process. Yeah? So breathe in. Sorry, I said that wrong. When you breathe out, it's like squeeze your stomach in. So you're breathing out of your lungs from the bottom. So breathing in, you fill up your lungs from the bottom so your stomach expands, nice and slowly. And when you're breathing out, bring your stomach in again so you're emptying your lungs from the bottom. And there's a logic behind that, which is your lungs are, in principle, crudely pear-shaped. They're bigger at the bottom. So all the air is down there. But young babies, 99.9% of them, breathe like that naturally. As we grow up, we suffer various traumas and little problems and so on and so forth. And then the result of that is that we end up breathing shallowly. And the way you can tell is if you're present, grounded, breathing normally, is just stand up normal, relax straight, and take a deep breath. Yeah. After this broadcast, just take your time, and no expectation. Just take a deep breath, fast, like that. Now, there are two things to watch for. What happens when you breathe in? Does your stomach come out, or do your shoulders go up? And if your shoulders go up, it means you are not breathing as you were when you were a baby, and you're carrying some kind of nominal fear or trauma or learned behavior. And not only that, Your lungs are smaller at the top. So when we get scared, fight or flight mode, then we shallow breathe. And we're getting very little oxygen in when we need most of it, just in the top of our lungs. So this deep breathing is important. Okay? So to find where your basis of your challenge might be, say, whatever it is, relationships, money, self-worth, find a quiet place. Do the breathing into your stomach a few times, nice and slowly, and breathing out again, bringing your stomach in to start it all. And that brings your attention down into your body. Very important, not your head, your body. And you want to focus on that. Maybe hold a hand over your stomach or over your center of your chest, your heart chakra. And you're bringing your attention into your body. And then just keep your eyes closed. With that breathing going, then bring to mind this problem you have, whatever it is. And observe, when you think about that problem, where do you feel the pressure in your body? Yes, I'll say that again. Where do you feel the pressure in your body? And it might be, you think, oh, I feel tight around my throat. Or I feel funny pressure in the middle of my head, or in the middle of my chest, or in my lungs, or in my stomach. That usually covers most of them. And then you can pay attention to that. And just keep on that breathing deeply and slowly. And bring your attention into where that funny pressure is. It's like, huh? Because you've now realized that your challenge, your problem, is somehow connected to this pressure in some part of your body. And this is where the mind-body loop becomes so important, because by working on one, you can clear the other. You can think about it all day long, but you're unlikely to do it. But by working with the body, you're breaking the loop, or you can break the loop. So what you do is then breathe, keep on breathing, get awareness of where this pressure is, and don't worry if you can't do it the first time. Try another time. You know, this is a whole new skill for you, right? It's like you're unlikely to go Shazam and do it like that. And what you then do, when you've become aware of that, you can, maybe next time round, maybe then, bring your attention into where this strange tension or pressure is, and feel into it and breathe into it. And maybe as you breathe out, you imagine that pressure just moving from that spot, moving away. Every time you breathe out, moving away. Now that may sound complex, but it's literally breathe in, get in touch with your body, bring to mind the problem you have, see where you're holding it, feel where you're holding it in your body, and then let it go. Breathe it out little by little. I know it sounds mind-bogglingly, stupidly simple, but believe me, it works. It won't always work. There will be challenges where you may not be able to identify where you're holding the pressure, or you may go up a wrong avenue. But in principle, if you do that with any problem you have, you can get into a much better place. How does that sound, Dianne?
That sounds lovely. So let's just stay in that mode for the moment. Continue to keep your eyes closed, and we're just going to do a very short forgiveness practice. Very, very simple one that anyone can do at any given point in time and throughout the whole day if you wish. So just close your eyes for a moment, everyone. Continue to breathe as Jim is directing you. And I want you to say, now we say how. How means hello, and we're going to wrap up very soon. How means hello. We have to be respectful. So just close your eyes, and you're just going to repeat in your mind, dear divine, dear Tao, dear source. This is not Taoism. Tao means the way, it means divine. It's all the same source. And you're going to say now, They're all the souls in this lifetime or any lifetimes, in any realms, who I, and you could say your name, and my ancestors may have hurt, harmed, disrespected, killed. You could name a list. In any capacity, we ask for forgiveness. And they are all the souls who may have hurt you and your ancestors from any realm, lifetime, in any capacity. We give forgiveness. Please know that all debts have been canceled and we no longer owe anyone anything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a very simple version to forgiveness practice. Gratitude goes a long way by simply saying thank you.
Gratitude and particularly forgiveness are really important.
Absolutely, and there's a longer version to that, of course. So Jim, as you know, we're wrapping up here, what would you like to share, your final thoughts, more or less? We have a few minutes, but...
Okay, so just talking about forgiveness, one of the most important, the most important forgiveness you can do, and also the most difficult one, is to forgive yourself for whatever part you had in whatever thing happened to you. And that means, with great difficulty this can be, if you're a victim of a circumstance, then try forgiving yourself. Now, that may not sit easily with some people, but work on that because it's really important. There may be exceptions to it, but I feel they are rare. Last few things are, as we've already covered in some detail, is that when you've got a problem, it can usually be resolved. And a lot of the work you can do yourself. And it's not necessarily easy. And it's not a modern 21st century, yay, we've got it on social media just like that, or Amazon will bring it tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that. Sometimes it does. And yes, we can manifest things, but we need to connect to ourselves, to acknowledge ourselves, and, like I say, forgive ourselves. But you mentioned briefly what people are saying, what words we use earlier on, and that's important to catch yourself saying the right things, but be very aware of saying the wrong things. Now, the wrong things are not wrong by other people's standards, but suppose you are want to save up some money to get some wonderful experience or meet a need. Yeah? Then it's important that you say, you know, I am saving money now. Yeah, and you mean it and you feel it. It's very important you do not say accidentally, sort of slip of the tongue, I must start saving some money. Because that must start is very undefined. It's way out in the future somewhere. It might be a day, it might be for 20 years. You're not being honest with yourself. So that's important. And the other thing is, keeping your word is very important. That's challenging. But keeping your word to yourself, that's even more challenging. I'm working on mine. So those, I feel, are key points to bear in mind and also to practice.
That's absolutely right. Hold yourself accountable. There's no question about that. But when you say something, you have to say it very congruent until, if it makes you feel sick in the stomach to say it, even if it's a big dream or goal, that's okay. Because if you're too comfortable, you gotta be uncomfortable. And normally we would say to you, how uncomfortable are you willing to get? What the limits you go to get comfortable? That's when you know you break through the barriers.
Yes.
That's where you hold yourself
Yes.
accountable, and that's a whole nother conversation. So, Jim, do you have a quote, a final quote, that's something that keeps you going, something that drives you every day, or maybe you have a practice or routine?
My personal practice is well, basically, I can meditate while I'm walking, and it's important for me to go for a walk, a good walk every day, or a bicycle ride or something like that. Um, but it's well, I've been doing this for well over 20 years, but I have the ability to drop into a very quiet, clear place in my heart, and it's not about mantras or anything like that. It's a question of just acknowledging me. So being aware of my body, being aware of literally being aware of the blood coursing through my veins, and checking that I'm not running or carrying worries or other people's thoughts. So I'm looking for that semi-permanent inner stillness, or as near inner stillness as I can get. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. There's so many things we can do, but it starts with us. Because one
And
of the things, yes,
one final thing is, right, forget what they say about blue light on screens keeping you awake at night. That's the only measurable thing that scientists can do. Do not watch rubbish, bad video, movies, social media, etc. before you go to bed. It's not about the blue light, it's the impact of the inappropriate material that then churns away through your mind all night long, and it embeds itself into you. And so if you're playing games or something like that, give yourself a break. Not 5 minutes, but like half an hour before you go to bed, and relax as you go to bed. And just let the day's cares and stresses fade away.
lovely. Well, thank you so much for that, Jim. I want to say thank you so much to Jim for being here with us today, and his wealth of knowledge. We so appreciate it. And I just want to say it was my pleasure, and thank you. One of the
Thank you,
things,
Dianne. And
you're very welcome. One of the things I want to say to many is that, as what Jim was saying, is that the night, if you're a very successful person, will sit down the night before. Well, I mean, when I mean the night before, just before to go to bed, and they have a discipline and a routine. And whatever you put into your mind, the last thing is what's going to happen. It's for the next day, how productive you're going to be. So you got to be conscious of what you do, what you say, how you spend your time, because your mind is processing. Your unconscious mind does not sleep. It uses it uses about 20% of energy in your body, your daily energy. So while your conscious mind is sleeping, it's your mind, the unconscious mind goes to work. So what you plant in there, without realizing it, is what you're going to manifest. Plain and simple. The other thing is, we all do know, when you heal your heart, you melt all blockages. That's a very famous quote by Dr. and Master Ji Gong Cha. Open up your heart. From the heart. Do everything from the heart. Be heart
oh
centered.
yes,
You do this from the heart, every single thing you do, for yourself or for others or the environment. And you will see the difference. And how does that work? You will feel it. You will know. You will feel the feelings. And when you feel those feelings, and even if you cry, it's fine. Let the tears fall. That's healing. So I want to say to everyone, like I've said, there's always hope. The sun will come out tomorrow. If you're listening here on Divine Soul Journey and you would like to contact us at dsjshow2020@gmail.com, and this inspired you, any one of the shows, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, suddenly reach out to us. I want to hear your story. Everyone wants to hear your story. So I would like again to say thank you, Jim, for coming on and for sharing your wealth of knowledge. And for those who are listening, I just say thank you for coming on and absorbing it like a sponge. Because you don't know what's going to resonate with you. So on that note, I wish you, each and every one of you, the best. And again, we thank Jim. And go out there and do something today. Practice what Jim suggested. Even if you're not sure, do your best. If it's for 2 minutes, until you create a pattern and a habit. For long as I know, the mind could be a little bit noisy. But it's okay. It's better than nothing. So I wish you all love, peace, and harmony. And the music you're hearing in the background is a love, peace, and harmony, which is a very powerful healing song. So I want to thank each and every one of you. And on that note, namaste, sitaram, assalamu alaikum, shalom, and aloha. Have a good day, a good evening, a good night. And if you're in the morning, a good morning to each and every one of you. Until next time on the Divine Soul Journey, this is Dianne Ojar saying thank you so much. Have an amazing day.